What's going on, everyone? So there's a lot of questions about Jonathan Kuminga and his future with the Golden State Warriors, right? The Warriors, based on reports, are not interested in giving him a full max contract. What they are willing to give in order to keep Kuminga is still up in the air. Obviously, things can change depending on his performance this upcoming season. There are moments where Jonathan Kuminga looks like he may be the next big thing. I mean, there's games and sequences and all stuff. Like, the guy can do a little bit of everything out there, right? And you see that star potential there. It's just, will he ever be able to maximize and hone it? Can he focus enough and really kind of just refine his game well enough to kind of take those next steps? I mean, maybe it even happens this year, right? Like, you have these games where he just looks like, man, like, he's a year or two away. And then he has games where you're just like, he might be 5 years away, right? If he can figure that out, then he is going to have a bright future, whether it's with the Warriors or another team. Now, look, there is a team out there that'll probably take a flyer on Jonathan Kuminga just because of the promise and what he has shown as a player and being 21 years old. I mean, he is a kid. He's young enough to have been drafted in this year's draft, right? Like, this is a guy that undoubtedly could be a long-term piece for one of these young teams and could be a real piece that could be a real franchise cornerstone to pair with whoever else you have on that roster. One of the teams that kind of come to mind that I don't know about a max, and we'll touch on whether a max deal or not is worth it, because I do think there is an argument for the Spurs to give him one. But you look at the Spurs, and they basically have everything that you need for the future except for the long-term small forward spot, right? So, obviously, you have Victor Wembanyama and you have Devin Vassell. Those are the two. That's your, shooting guard and center power forward of the future, right? Now, you could argue, and I've even talked about this before, to eventually make Wemby your power forward and go and get a center, right? Because especially you look at the Western Conference and you have guys like Jokic that you got to play 4 times a night, and Zach Edey, and you have a lot of these big, just physical, beefy centers, and Wemby is just so skinny. It's like, do you really want him banging with the big boys? So to put this in perspective, Victor Wembanyama weighs the same weight as Bronny James, who was just drafted by the Lakers, right? And he's 6'1", right? Like, so he needs to, and look, Victor in his defense is very young, right? He's going to eventually grow into his man body. He's going to start putting on some weight, but is he going to be able to do enough to where it justifies him just taking, a physical beating every night? I don't know. Time will tell. But, you have the Spurs, who are also incredibly high on Jeremy Sohan, right? I know a lot of Spurs fans aren't. I know a lot of Spurs fans think that you need to get rid of him and unload him, but he more likely than not, based on the Spurs infatuation with him, is probably your power forward of the future. So you have your shooting guard, right? You have your power forward, and you have your center of the future. Well, the Spurs also got Stephon Castle this year, who he could, if you needed him to, in a pinch, play the 3, right? He's got, 6'6" size, but he's supposed to be the point guard of the future. He is supposed to be the guy that they slot in and have him basically leading the charge. It's one of the big reasons why they added Chris Paul, so that way he can kind of be a mentor for Stephon Castle. And look, I mean, we saw what Chris Paul was able to do with, like, SGA. And SGA to this day still credits Chris Paul and still works with Chris Paul and will, like, stay at his house for the summer and stuff like that just to work out with him and kind of pick his brain and stuff. So, and I've talked repeatedly that I think the best move the Spurs could have done this offseason was go get Chris Paul. Outside of course, like, getting Jokic or something like that. But as far as, like, realistic options, Chris Paul was the best thing that could have happened. Because obviously he's going to make things incredibly easy for Victor Wembanyama. but he's also going to be able to help grow and develop all these young guys, and in particular, Castle. Castle is supposed to be the point guard that they're building around. So again, you kind of go through the list here, and it's like, okay, you got Stephon Castle at the 1, you have Devin Vassell at the 2, you have Jeremy Sohan at the 4, Victor Wembanyama at the 5. Who's your 3? They're already shopping and trying to unload Keldon Johnson, and Keldon Johnson doesn't give you the defense that you need to defend out on the perimeter, and is kind of more of a vacuum scorer than anything. Now, Harrison Ingram could maybe be that piece, but he's a real project, right? And is he ever going to be able to get to that point? You do have other guys, you have Shebane, you have guys like David Duke, right? David Duke could potentially be that guy, or Wesley, right? They have several guys that maybe could become that, but it would be nice to get a guy like a Jonathan Kuminga that you could bring in, slot in, and play the 3. Imagine a starting 5 of Castle, Vassell, Kuminga, Sohan, and Victor Wembanyama. I mean, at least 4 out of 5 of those guys have real star potential. Vassell is still very young. I know some people are kind of hot and cold on Vassell, but he's still only 24, right? Can he start taking some strides and be that, start moving into the 20s on a nightly basis? I mean, he's right there. He's right at the threshold, right? Stephon Castle is a guy that can just do a little bit of everything, right? I mean, he's a Swiss Army knife. I mean, that's what he was even at UConn, right? Like, just, hey, you need me to score? I'll score. You need me to just defend? I'll defend. You need me to make plays? I'll make plays. You need me to rebound? I'll just rebound, right? Like, that's the beauty and luxury of Stephon Castle, and why I think he can go a long way, and you can get a guy like a Kuminga. Because also you don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen, right? You don't want to have too many guys and egos, and everybody wants to be someone, right? Kuminga wants to be a star and all that, right? Like, there is balance that is necessary, but I do think Kuminga would be that balance. I think Victor is your clear-cut number 1, right? And then you have Devin Vassell, who, can be your shooting guard and be just, a bucket getter. Kuminga, if he continues his trajectory, he's probably going to be your number 2 option. I mean, he's probably the guy that you have him and Wemby with Vassell, who can just go get buckets, right? Go be your scoring threat. And then Stephon Castle can just be your Swiss Army knife, initiator, playmaker, point of attack guy, right? And then you got Jeremy Sohan, who can be your kind of point forward. If he can kind of evolve into that, be that Draymond-esque type guy. I don't think he'll be Draymond, but, like the potential of, slotting in and kind of playing that point forward role, right? And defensively, I don't hate the idea, right? I mean, it all boils down to, like, what would it cost? Like, what would you have to give up to go get a Jonathan Kuminga? But, I mean, the Spurs have plenty of picks, and, your hope is to get a guy like Kuminga. That's at 21 is giving you signs that he's a potential star, right? And he's got great size to play either forward spot. I mean, he could even be your power forward of the future, right? And you could still go get a 3 or something, right? Now, like, I like the idea of Kuminga, but here's a question: is like, what is he worth a max? For most teams, no. For a team like the Spurs, and because Wemby is so cheap and so good so fast, you can take the risk that other teams can't, right? So you can pay Kuminga a little more than you probably should, because Wemby isn't going to be paid for another 2-3 years, right? And then even his first contract isn't going to be in the 50-60 million range, right? So if you're the Spurs, you're looking at it as like, we could give Kuminga that, $40 million a year contract, and it's fine and justifiable because 2 of our top 5 guys are incredibly cheap in Castle and Wemby. Right? And you're also, like, you're probably trading for Kuminga, so probably giving up something like a Keldon Johnson. Maybe you're giving up, a Zach Collins in the deal, right? Like, in a bunch of picks or something like that. I don't know. But you'd have the flexibility because Wemby is so cheap. And with Kuminga being so young and you being this team, now you have that growth. Now you have that foundation piece. I mean, again, you'd have Castle, Vassell, Kuminga, and Wemby as your core 4. I mean, that just sounds insane. That just sounds like, wait a minute, like they might be the best team in the league in 3 years. This might be a team that's just championship after championship after championship type thing. Right? But, at the end of the day, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think, if you can go figure it out and end up getting Jonathan Kuminga, you do it? Do you think, no, Kuminga, stay away from him. He's not worth it. Juice isn't worth the squeeze and what you're going to have to pay him and all that. Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.